Hello, so today's going to be a short video talking about win conditions and a little bit about talking about how to cap your board really high in order to guarantee a first. Sometimes you find yourself in incredible spots, and a lot of times you have to look at your board and think of the best way to properly cap out that board. And hint, spoiler, it's going to be another video where I talk about just playing around Zac, because this is one of the best win conditions for almost any comp in the Set 14 experience. If you enjoy my content, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'm usually doing guide content. I also intermittently do some VOD reviews as well as some tutorials on different aspects of the game. So if you're trying to get the most out of your Set 14 experience, or if you're coming from watching like a couple of my other videos in the past and getting recommended it again, it's free. Subscribe. It helps me out quite a bit. Thank you very much. Anyways, so this game's obviously going to be a Graves game. I'm going to interject with different aspects. It's not going to be a full VOD review, so don't worry if you don't like VOD reviews. I'm going to talk about the comp. I'm going to talk about some of the conditions for it. I'm going to talk about capping the comp, and then I'm going to talk about some of the decision making I did in a recent game that I played, which should be somewhere here, right? So anyways, let's talk about Graves in general. So first, if we're introducing the comp, the Graves comp is one of the highest cap, really strong Golden Ox reroll style of game. Basically, the idea is that you are playing 4 Golden Ox typically, where you are playing around Graves and Jarvan. You're trying to reroll those 2 units, and then you fit in some Divinicorps, which give you a lot of team-wide buffs that actually help out your board quite a bit. And your board looks something like this when you try and cap it out on level 8. The idea is that Graves 3 is an absolute demon. After a lot of changes and buffs, he basically just pumps out damage and can easily streak you and win you much of the game. Jarvan 3 is an incredible tank, and then you also get these Divinicorps bonuses, which then can zoop up or power up your units. In general, on Graves especially, the Divinicorps bonuses matter quite a bit because they really help melee users, right? You get some HP, get some armor and MR, and then you also get the crit chance, and then Senna gives base AD. Graves is an executioner, so you have executioner, you have crit, and then you also have a lot of damage amp from Golden Ox. Golden Ox, the way that it works is you get extra damage amp as you spend gold. So you get damage amp, you have crit, getting base AD, really important. Senna is one of the most important units in this game. And then you can also go for Senna 3 if you want to, and then you hit everything all together. It becomes a demon-like board, and then level 9, you can just play around legendaries. But anyways, your Graves items, typically your best items are going to be some rendition of Sterix, QSS. I think these are the 2 most important items, and the last item is usually a healing item. Hodge is like a little bit more damage, but you're a little bit more glass cannon-y. And then BT is like the more safe, reliable one. I actually prefer BT in general. This comp also has a lot of win conditions in the form of Orin artifacts. In case you don't know, Titanic Hydra, extremely broken on Graves. Always play towards it if you have the opportunity to. And Wit's End, extremely broken on Graves. Always play towards it. There's lots of other ones that have really good conditions, like Suspicious Trenchcoat is insanely good on Graves, and some of the other stuff as well. Like there's a couple others, like even Mittens, some of the other melee ones as well. But the 2 big ones are Wit's End and Titanic Hydra, because they proc on all the autos, and he splits into 5 autos, so it actually does like insane damage and insane power. Anyways, let's talk about the game that we have here. So sometimes you're going to find yourself with a comp. Like this comp obviously is very strong. A lot of people hard force it. A lot of people try and play towards it almost every game that they can, because it is just one of those comps that is just really reliable, really strong. And especially being a reroll, it's also very consistent. I found myself in this type of encounter where it is the Golem Galaxy. So, we see that it's a Garen encounter. We have our Golem right over here. My Golem isn't the greatest Golem, right? I don't have a win condition on the Golem, but I do have a decent Golem, right? You can look at it and you can say to yourself, this looks like a really good Boombot Urgot style of board, right? You have the Bruiser for Cho'Gath, you have the Boombot emblem, whatever. Of course, I could have done that. I could have just played towards Urgot, but there was already somebody with a Boombot emblem. You'll see it later that is playing around Urgot, so, I couldn't really do that. So that kind of sucks for me. What I did do is I high rolled into this Graves. So I had early Graves. I hit Graves 2 like early on stage 2, and I had Radiant Relics. Radiant Relics basically just gives me a Radiant item, and when I clicked it, I saw Radiant Sterix. That's one of the Graves items, so it should work out to be pretty well. And then based on the components that I have, I'm actually halfway to my other Graves items. So I'm in a decent spot here, and this is going to help me to streak, and I'm going to be really strong, especially on stage 2. As you can see, I'm already making 20 gold. I pumped to 12. I'm 100 HP. This is a good spot. already when you're in a spot like this, you already have to start considering, okay, this is a spot that I could potentially win the game with, right? There are games where people don't have any copies of Graves on stage 2 and they still win the game because the comp is really strong. I already have a Graves 2, I already have one good item, I've already slammed a second item in the Sunfire, and my components, I'm not slamming anything just yet, but they are able to be played around, which is really helpful. It's really beneficial to me. There's lots of people with all sorts of crazy boards. This was the guy, I think, Boombot. I think there's another person also playing Boombot, which is why I said, like, I have to play something besides Boombot this game. Like I said, I'm not going to VOD read this whole game. I'm actually going to go through this game in particular on my members channel, and I'm going to talk about it step by step there, just because I already think I did a Graves game for the general public, and I'm trying to collect a bunch of VODs that I can VOD review for members content, because I want to try and do like every other day, specifically for members, just going over losses or going over really good wins to kind of build up like a resume of, like, you know, good content for you guys if you are a member in addition to being a subscriber. But anyways, it's Graves. I'm going to skip a little bit throughout this part. It's going to be an easy 5 streak, obviously. Like a Graves 1 could often 5 streak on stage 2. So Graves 2, we're going to be in a good spot. I'm going to get to a certain point in the game, and we're going to focus a lot more towards the end of this game. So obviously, you know, you're win streaking, slam your items early. You know, red buff isn't a crazy good Graves item, but I had 2 bows, right? I'm going to try and get a QSS eventually for my Graves. But until then, you know, just make red buff, make my utility. I know I already have Sunfire, so I don't need red buff, but I didn't really have a use for the other bows. I could have maybe made Kraken, but I was like, whatever, just slam attack speed on him, because, like, you really want attack speed just to make sure. That's why QSS works really good on him. Just slamming items, just trying to be, like, as powerful as possible in this early game, right? Then, you know, take augments that are really good for what I want. Eye for an eye, really good silver augment in this case. So, you know, some of the other ones might have been okay, but this actually gave me the glove that makes my QSS, so then I could put the red buff on Aphelios. Aphelios loves attack speed, so that's totally fine. And we're just going to try and streak for the rest of the stage by just slamming our components. If I'm ever stressed about losing a fight, I can also make the new Anima Visage or replacement redemption item just to try and make sure that I continue to win streak. So as you can see, I'm trying to manage my gold. I'm going to roll for Golden Ox every single turn. This is a point where I have to try and convert into a win. So a lot of times when you're in this spot, this is something that's really important with Graves reroll. I'm just going to pause and stop for a second. Hopefully I do a little bit of scouting, just so I can try and point it out to everybody why the decision here is rolling on 6. But basically, as you can see, I'm going to roll on 6. With this comp, especially, you really have to balance getting these Golden Ox procs up, because you want to get to around 50. I kind of talked about this in my other game. By the end of the game, you want to be like 50 plus on this little counter, or else you're going to fall really behind on damage, in my opinion. So it actually benefits a lot to roll pretty aggressively in your mid game, just because, especially if you have 4 Golden Ox in, which in this case I found in early Aphelios, you're going to get back the gold anyways, and you're still going to make your econ intervals, which is totally fine. So you're going to be in an okay spot. Here, as you can see, this board's a little bit stronger. I'm just going to slam my items. I don't really care too much. I'll worry about getting Sundering later. All I care about is just making sure that I'm win streaking as long as possible. When you're win streaking, you want to continue to win streak to continue to get that extra gold you get from the streak bonus. But anyways, one thing I want to stop and pause for a second here. So you're going to notice I'm rolling pretty aggressively on level 6. Why am I rolling so aggressively on level 6? A lot of it comes from identifying how to win with this comp, right? In this particular, this applies to almost every comp, but there's always a question with rerolls. Sorry, I'm trying to pause it on my board, but I keep flickering off. Let me try and get here. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So there's 2 things that you can think about with this comp, right? I'm going to go back to the guide portion over here. When you're playing Graves reroll, obviously the highest cap is going to be having Jarvan 3 and having a Senna 3 as well, right? Are they necessary to win the game? In some lobbies, yes. In some lobbies, no. So a lot of times what you'll see people do is they'll try and roll for Graves 3. Sometimes they'll roll for Graves 3 deep on level 6 to make sure they have the Graves 3. Or if they're in a particularly good spot, they'll push level 7 and then they'll roll on level 7, try and complete the Graves on level 7. The odds are a bit lower for 2 costs on level 7, but it makes it a little bit easier to hit the other units, the Jarvan, the Senna, which raises your max cap. Because obviously if you have a Senna 3 with items, a Jarvan 3 with items, and a Graves 3 with items, it's going to be a lot better than just having the Graves 3. In the particular lobby that I'm playing right now, you saw it at one point in the game. There was a guy with like a bunch of Slayer emblems and some Boombot emblems. Currently right now, there are, I think, 3 people that are playing around Jarvan, right? Either Slayers, Marksmen, which Vanguard Marksman will use a thing, and there's like another person who had like Golden Ox and had a Jarvan on his board. So between the Slayer players and the Jarvan players, it's very unlikely that I'm going to hit Jarvan 3 and Senna 3. So what I'm doing here is I'm identifying, okay, if I have to win this game, obviously Jarvan 3 is going to be really good and Senna 3 is going to be really good, but it's a huge grief for me to roll on 7 in this game in particular because there's so many people that are playing around Jarvan, right? If there are 4 people that each have a Jarvan 2, yes, I can still theoretically hit Jarvan 3, but it's such a waste of gold to go for Jarvan 3 because it's going to take me forever to find him. Right? It's going to take me so long to hit the Jarvan 3 that I'm better off just using that gold elsewhere. Same with Senna, right? There are lots of people that are going to be playing around Slayer in my particular lobby, so the Senna might be a little bit hard to find. So what I want to do instead is not worry about those. Instead, this kind of makes it very clear that I'm going to roll on level 6 here. I'm going to roll on level 6 for the Graves 3, and then once I have Graves 3, then I can reevaluate, decide if I'm going to stay on level 7 when I level there to roll for the Jarvan Senna, or I'll just use my gold to push levels and cap out around legendary units. A big portion of any comp, right? It doesn't matter what the comp is. This is like, you know, we're talking about the comp and how the comp becomes strong. But no matter what your comp is, there are certain 5 costs and there are certain win conditions for any comp that exists. And that one of those is Zac. Another one is Garen. Some of them are the other 5 costs. Some of them are also just like broken synergies, augments, etc. No matter what your comp is, if you can find a Zac and scale up a Zac to a high enough amount of blobs, you will win the game for free. Similarly, if you find a Garen early and you get enough Garen mods on your board, especially ones that are meaningful if you're playing into a deep trait, that will win you the game for free. So whether or not I have the Jarvan 3 or not doesn't matter if I have a Zac 2 with 50 blobs. That's just part of the game. That's part of set 14. It is what it is. Like it or not, that's a part that you have to be ready to play around. So when I'm looking at this board and I'm trying to convert it into a win, there's 2 things that are going on right now in the game, right? The first one is, do I roll on level 6 or do I roll on level 7? Efficiently using my gold. For me, roll on level 6 is obvious here because there's so many people that are playing around Jarvan and there's a good chunk of people that are playing around Senna. The chances are I won't be able to play around Jarvan or Senna in order to actually cap my board effectively. So I want to make sure that I hit the Graves early to keep my HP lead, because if I hit Graves 3 earlier and I just stay on level 6, I use my Golden Ox procs, I will continue to be strong and I will continue to keep my 100 streak. That will be a lot more effective because hitting the Graves earlier rather than going to 7 and delaying my Graves 3 in hopes of hitting Graves in conjunction with Jarvan and Senna, the chances are I'm going to hit none of the 3. So we're rolling on level 6. After we roll on level 6, you're going to notice that once I hit Graves 3, which, you know, is going to be relatively soon because I already have 6 copies, you're going to notice I'm rolling pretty aggressively with Golden Ox. I have 4 Golden Ox in, so I'm earning back the gold. Here's one of the Slayer players, for example, right? This is like 2 Slayers, right? He's going to be playing Jarvan Senna, right? There's another player with some Slayers and another player with like Marksman. This is what I was talking about before, but just a rehash of like the boards that we're looking at. But as you can see, I have a huge lead because the Graves is so strong in this early game. So a lot of it is making sure that I continue to win streak, right? You'll notice as well with my econ, right, I found these copies of Vexes. Vex is much later in the comp, right? If we're talking about this comp in particular, Vex isn't as important because number 1, I already have Executioner because I have an Executioner emblem. Number 2, the Vex doesn't really get itemized or doesn't do that much damage in most of the cases. And number 3, my next in, if I was going to play another unit, is going to be Senna, right? Because Graves already has Executioner. I don't need to scale up Executioner. That's fine. Who cares about that? The Senna giving base AD and giving Slayer to Jarvan is way more important. It's not that crazy for Jarvan. Like, Jarvan doesn't need Slayer, but especially the base AD is way more important than the base extra crit chance, because the base AD is what really drives this board home, because that's what we're missing right now, right? We already have a little bit of crit chance. We already have damage am. The base AD is what's going to scale up our damage dramatically. So that's why Senna works really well in this comp. But as you can see, I'm still making econ thresholds. I'm not dropping too far below gold, but I want to make sure that I ramp up these Golden Ox stacks. The gold will come back because if I'm winning rounds, I'm continuing to win rounds. I have the streak gold and I also have the gold from Golden Ox from every unit that I kill. Or not every unit, like most units that you kill, because you have a good chances with 4 Golden Ox. So let's go here. We're going to play this round out, right? I'm going to hit my grades relatively soon because I'm only 2 off, right? You're bound to hit it. A lot of people are holding on to 2 costs still. And as you can see, I'm just going to roll for Golden Ox. I'm going to roll for Golden Ox 1 or 2 more turns. And then eventually I'm going to hit the Graves. Here I took Stand United item grab bag. It's just really good. Stand United, this is a board that activates quite a few traits. And this gives base stats, right? It gives base AD, base AP. I think it's pretty good with the comp. I might be mistaken. Maybe I over-evaluate it. But every time I take this with Graves, it feels like it's extremely powerful. It feels like a huge power spike. And then an extra item is an extra item. So I'd rather just take the silvers here. So that's why I ended up taking that. I got another QSS. I can just put it on these Aphelios. And then as you can see, we roll, we hit our Graves. And then as soon as you notice, as soon as I hit the Graves, I'm going to start pumping XP. So I just want to make it to level 7. We're actually going to start pushing for level 8, level 9. Because the same thing applies, right? We're not going to hit Senna 3. We're not going to hit Jarvan 3. So now we want to use our gold to start to push levels, to find our early copy of Zac, early copy of Garen, and cap out around that. We'll talk about a little bit of options when you're in a position like this, but a lot of it's converting to the win, right? I don't want to just plunder all my gold, rolling to 0 on level 7, looking for a Jarvan that I'm never going to hit. Because by the time I hit the Jarvan, I'm already going to be outscaled, and I'm already going to be at a point where I'm going to be losing fights anyways. What I would rather do is collect my Golden Ox, right? Collect all my Golden Ox gold, ramp up the stacks, and slowly push myself to level 8, level 9, level 10, get better odds of some better units to play on the board. So we're just going to kind of skip now. That's the game plan. We don't need to watch the whole mid game. I think I lose one fight at one point because I mess up my positioning with the Graves. Graves, you know, you always put him on one side, kind of tucked in a corner. The Graves basically can dive. If he kills this unit, he has a good chance of just turning around, killing the back line, and then deleting everybody along the way. Very easy for him to wrap, so you just always want to be aware of that. So that's why I usually put him in a corner, like either this side or this side, and then you put him with like a couple units in the front so that you can just kind of get there and delete the back line. But anyways, we're gonna skip ahead a lot, right? Like I said, it's not gonna be a general VOD. It's not gonna be a full VOD review. Instead, I just want to point out some of the key moments and then talk a little bit about capping out the board, which is what the main point of this video is. So here I think I lose the fight because I think my Graves just like, I position on wrong side, obviously, as you can see. Right, I need my Graves to kill this Aphelios. But then look, Graves is going to go all the way over here. Right, if Graves was on this side, Aphelios would have been dead and I would have won by now. But instead I'm over here killing a Kog'Maw for some reason. That's just my bad. So, you know, not a 100 game, not a perfect game. But anyways, find a Zac early. That's our new win condition. So we're level 9 now, right? Excuse me. This is the part that's really important, right? Now, on level 9, we have options, obviously. There's some of them that are a little bit more noob bait, and there's some of them that are a little bit more important. So, effectively, this game, we had a really high roll game. We have a lot of HP. We hit Graves 3 relatively early. We streaked most of our game. We have infinite gold. It's 5-3. We're level 9. It's not super fast 9. It's not like, you know, the Giga high roll where we're level 9 on stage 4. But we're level 9 already. We have lots of Golden Ox stacks. As you can see, we're at 50. We're at 50 this turn. Like when we roll to the end of this turn, we'll be at 50 stacks. So we're already like well above tempo. We're in a good spot. We have a good chance of winning out this game. So how do we convert this now into a win? We already talked about our journey and our path and our decision making up until now in order to try and hit and play around our units in a meaningful way. How do we cap out this board really high? The first thing that people will always say, or they'll think about, is, oh, you know what's really broken? 6 Golden Ox, right? Why don't I just go level 9? I'll play this board, and then I can just play 6 Golden Ox. No. This is not how you cap a board. This is how you throw a game, right? Read 6 Golden Ox. What does 6 Golden Ox do? 24% damage. Oh, let's read 4 Golden Ox. 24% damage amp, 60% chance of gold. 6 Golden Ox. 25% damage amp, 100% loot, and then some chance of that loot being a component. 6 Golden Ox is really good if you have an emblem and you hit 6 Golden Ox early, because you farm up a bunch of components. That's where the strength of 6 Golden Ox is that you farm up an infinite amount of items that you can then itemize everybody on your board, and you have so many threats, right? A unit is a threat when they have multiple items. This Aphelios, who gives a shit about this Aphelios? He does nothing. He does absolutely nothing. But if he has items, let's just pick whatever. Let's say like Aphelios, quote unquote, like, I don't know, what some guide you watched on YouTube said this was BIS, like whatever, right? Let's say this Aphelios now is a threat because he has 3 items. That's a big part of the game, right? This Jarvan 3 doesn't matter. He doesn't have items. If he has items, he becomes a threat. So that's what 6 Golden Ox is good at. It's good at making additional threats, because you can make more units on your board do more meaningful things by farming of components. If you're not farming the components, if it's not early in the game where you're going to farm infinite components, this is not a way to cap a board. It does not do anything, right? You are getting how much more damage amp? Exactly nothing. It does not matter at all. So like a lot of times I see this all the time, like in games I'm playing, where people will just play 6 Golden Ox with this type of board and think that it's like a way of capping out the board. It's not. It doesn't actually make your board any stronger, right? What makes your board stronger is finding the win condition here. So like I said before, the main win conditions usually are Senna 3 being like a huge damage dealer, Aphelios with items being a huge damage dealer, and Jarvan 3 being a giga tank, right? You really want to have a solid tank in your front line, because if Jarvan tanks forever, then nobody's ever going to target the Graves, and he has free range to like roam around everywhere and not get killed by anybody, right? If your front line dies really fast, like if your Graves is here and your Jarvan dies, then, you know, people are going to start targeting the Graves because he's going to be the closest, because he's going to be somewhere in the back line. So what helps out a lot is having the 3-star Jarvan. Now, I already identified in this game, I'm not going to be able to play around Jarvan 3. I'm likely not going to be able to play around Senna 3. If you can play around these units, obviously that's a way of winning the game. But I can't do that this game. What do I have already in my game? I have a Zac. So the way Zac works is if you roll, you get these blobs in your shop, and if you buy the blobs, then you can scale up the Zac to be infinitely strong, right? Basically, at one point, if you get like 50 plus bloblets, the Zac will 1v9 and you will just win the game with the Zac on its own. Of course, like I'm not saying sell your whole board with the Zac, but I'm saying like Zac 2 has beaten 3-star 4 cost. I have seen it with my own eyes in my own games. I've lost games to Zacs that have scaled up sufficiently. So what is the goal of this game right now? Well, the goal is, obviously I can fix up my synergies a little bit, but I don't care too much about getting useless synergies in, right? Stand United is fine. I could get some extra stuff going on, right? I could obviously activate Boombot and Bruiser and Executioner. I can activate Marksman. You know, I can find, you know, with this Viego, I can play like a Mordekaiser and I can like do some crazy shit, of course. But the main thing is that I have a Zac. So I'm going to roll on level 9. There's no more going level 10. You do not give a shit about going level 10. You go level 10, you throw the game. Right? There's no point to level to 10. What does level 10 give me? Another unit on my board? Who cares? It's not going to have items anyways, right? Like, look, no items, no items, no items. I don't need it, right? Am I playing 6 Golden Ox? No. I don't need to farm extra components. I don't need to farm extra items, because by the time I farm the items, I'm going to be dead, right? It does not matter. It's stage 5, right? 6 Golden Ox is really good if you hit it at the beginning of stage 4, because you farm items, and then by the time you make it to level 9, you have like everybody itemized and you're actually really strong. What am I going to do here? I'm going to use my gold to roll. I'm going to crank this Golden Ox number. And while I crank this Golden Ox number, I'm going to get a bunch of gold because of Golden Ox. I'm going to use that gold to continue rolling. We're going to be D merchants. We're going to just keep pressing D until this Zac wins me the game. That's the win condition. And that's what we identified from before, right? We know that our front line is going to be worse because we don't have the Jarvan 3. We know our damage is going to be worse because we don't have the Senna 3. But we're going to go for the Zac 3. Right? It's very easy to take a game like this and to just throw it away by going for stuff that you quote unquote think are superior or good or whatever. But what's going to help the most is the Zac. Additionally, I'm also going to try and roll for a Garen here. And what you're going to notice is in this game, you know, first I have Renekton. Renekton's fine. I can hit Aphelios too. That's fine. I dropped Alistar, by the way, right? I don't need to play 6 Golden Ox. I have Bruiser synergy already with the Gragas. So I'm just playing Viego because he's like a little bit of extra frontline. So I'm totally fine with that. And what we're going to do here is we are just going to chill. We're going to roll. We're going to make sure we hit our Golden Ox procs. And we're hopefully going to find a Garen as well, right? The thing is, because we're cranking the Golden Ox number so high, Garen's going to be really meaningful because Garen can spread Golden Ox to some of the other units on the board, right? So if we think about it, like over here, you know, getting Garen in, that's why Garen works really well with certain comps. If you could spread a deep synergy to other units, like if I can get Golden Ox on Senna, or if I can get Golden Ox on Zac, or I can get Golden Ox on the Garen himself, these units are going to hit like a truck because they're not designed originally to have like, you know, 100% extra damage amp. So you get that on the units, it's going to be a really strong board. But anyways, we look here, right? Garen, we have Garen out. We have these other things, right? I fixed on my Aphelios items a little bit. I know I have double anti-heal. You know, it's fine. Like I said, I was playing tempo items. I just didn't have another item to make with the bows, right? I had too many bows this game from early on. So it's just like I have to make something here while preserving my components for my graves to make sure that I can convert this into a win. But as you can see, we're going to steamroll everybody. And then there's something really interesting that I want to show here. I don't mean it too much as a roast, but I just want to like point out something when we get to like our final stretch, which is right about now, right? Let's look at this board. Let's look at our two boards here. So the opposite side of the board, right? What do we have on the opposite side of the board? We have exactly what I was talking about, win conditions. We have Garen 2 and we have Zach 2. This person has 40 gold, level 9. Pretty much everybody upgraded and is extremely strong, right? This is an anima board. It caps extremely high. If you haven't played it, it's really good anima synergies as well. You got Bastion in for free, Dynamo in for free, playing 4 Dynamo with a random MF as well. Extremely high cap board. But one thing I would like to say is what the fuck is the Zach doing on the bench? The Zach should be on the board because you get the Bloblets. Like, I know the Aurora will pull in the Zach, but he doesn't. He gets some of the health. Like, he gets the first health, but then when he splits, he doesn't get the health. It's like kind of weird. You can look at it yourself. It's always better to play the Zach on the board if you have the opportunity to, right? Zach should be played here. No offense to this guy, but this is what I mean, right? Like, when you have a Zach, you never go 10. Right? You might, maybe you can in some cases. I'm not going to say all the time you shouldn't ever go 10. But if you look at this guy's board, for two things. Number one, he has enough burst damage to kill my front line, right? Until I have Zach 2. There's a good chance he can actually win if he positions his Zaya to kill the Graves earlier, right? So as you can see, I almost lost this round. I'm probably going to lose the next couple of rounds, like when I fight this guy, because right now the only two people are just basically the two high rollers. It's Garen encounter, right? So too many people like shot the moon, and they all died because there were two people that were putting too much pressure. So now it's just a matter of converting this into a win, right? When I say converting into a win, we already knew from the start of this game I had a very high roll opener, right? I was 100 streaking. I had Graves. I have a radiant item that's really good on Graves. I had a good spot. We didn't waste our gold going for Jarvan 3 and going for Senna 3 because there were too many people that were holding onto the units. We already established that. So now what am I doing? We're going to roll whenever we can for Golden Ox, crank up the Golden Ox number, right? We have Garen as well for scaling purposes. And we are going to go for this Zach 2 with a bunch of Bloblets, right? The Zach 2 will be the carry at one point in the game, and you will notice the Zach will do more damage than anybody on my board at one point in the game. That's just how it works because he's infinitely scaling. I have 88 HP and infinite resources to scale this guy, right? What I could have done is the same thing that that my opponent is doing, right? My opponent has a Zach 2 on bench, but is not rolling. Instead of rolling, this person, no offense to them, is going level 10, right? You shouldn't be going level 10 with the Zach, right? The MF, as important as you think the MF is, probably not that important. Like, I understand 4 Dynamo looks really good on the left side of the screen, but you know what's even better than 4 Dynamo? A Zach with 50 Bloblets, right? This is something that I want everybody to do in your game. Whenever you look at, if you have a Zach 2, the Zach 2 should never be over here. The Zach 2 should be right here, front and center, with items. You can even move the items off the Leona at one point. But if you watch these fights, you're going to notice I'm probably going to lose a couple of them, right? Look, this person is stronger than me right now. That's the thing, right? This person could have won this game. In my opinion, I think that I could have easily lost this game because this person's board is so crazy because of how good their golem is and how good the rest of their board is, right? Decent augments, decent board, really high cap, has Garen 2 with a good item, right? Their Garen 2 is a monster, had Garen on stage 4, so they already have infinite Garen mods if you look at it, but the Garen mods aren't on the Zach. The Garen mods are just on the board. And as you can see, right, if I'm on the same side as the Zaya could easily kill my front line and then one-tap this Graves. So it doesn't matter how much damage the Graves does. If the Graves gets one-tapped, which he will, right, I lose the round anyways. But as you can see, what am I going to do? I'm not going to save my gold. We're not going 10. We're not trying to fit another synergy. We are just going to roll for infinite Zach Bloblets here. That is what is most important. Because, you know, obviously I still have to hit Zach 2. If I don't hit Zach 2, it's going to be, you know, muted anyways. But that's going to be more important. And then now, finally, you can see this person's playing their Zac on their board. But the reason they're playing Zac on the board is because they went level 10, right? They were level 9 previously, they went level 10. Like I said, I mean no disrespect to the player. I'm just using it as an example. I believe in my heart of heart that this person should have won the game and they should have beat me. And I scammed this win because they just didn't play their Zac earlier and they didn't roll for Zac. Instead, they used all their gold to go level 10. And as you can see, the fights are going to be close, right? If my Graves doesn't get one tapped, I'm going to win. But at one point, like right now, I hit Zac 2. I already put a mod on him, by the way. I had a bruiser mod. I didn't know who to put on, so I put on Zac to try and stabilize me. So I couldn't put Golden Ox on Zac. If I put Golden Ox on Zac, then it would be Giga over right now. But if you look at my Zac, I am scaling up the Bloblets way more than my opponent is, right? To a point now where they won't be able to catch up because they don't have enough gold to roll for Zac Bloblets. I'm at, where is it? 31 Bloblets. It's not that much, but I'm still going to be cashing out Golden Ox, right? So I'm going to be fine. And I have the Zac 2 now. When you watch these fights, you're going to notice this Zac is not going to be able to be killed, right? So I could put my Graves wherever. I'm just trying to make him not get one tapped. I don't care about wrapping anymore because my Zac is going to do most of the work, right? And watch how these fights are slowly going to shift significantly more into my favor. Part of it is that I get like the cranked up Golden Ox, obviously. Part of that is that Golden Ox is going to ramp up and it's going to be pretty effective. But also watch the Zac. This is a 2-item Zac. I still haven't transferred my 3rd item on him because I just didn't want to waste a remover. I said I'll just get an item off of the next carousel. Look at these fights. The Zac is still alive. My Graves is not getting touched because the Zac is still... It's a 2-item Zac, right? I've been playing this Graves the whole game. I've racked up 60 plus damage amp on this thing. The Zac doesn't have Golden Ox mod. He has Bruiser mod. Look at the Zac damage. It's almost as much as the Graves. It's already almost... It's only 30 Bloblets. It's almost as much as the Graves. The Graves has been on my board stacking Golden Ox for the entirety of the game. The Zac is already doing more damage. That's why you don't go level 10. You just roll for the Bloblets. It just is what it is, right? The other person had a Zac 2 earlier than me. They could have easily scaled that Zac to be as dominant as mine. Because imagine if their Zac was doing as much damage as my Zac. That would be, you know, very good. But instead here, you're going to notice their Zac, it only has like 2,000 HP. Doesn't have tank items on it. Just has like a random TG. Right? Doesn't have good scaling items. You want to scale them with a lot of HP. Protector's Vows are also good to just get the early Zac cast off. And this is like, you know, from the start of the game, we identified this win condition. The win condition was we're going to play around Graves, right? We're going to get to level 9. And then once we're level 9, we're going to cap out around Garen and Zac. That's how your game plan should be all the time. Your playing should always say to yourself, I'm going to cap around Zac and make sure the Zac gets 80 Bloblets. It doesn't matter going 9. It doesn't matter going 10. It doesn't matter anything. If you have the Zac and you scale up the Zac will be the carry. That is a big part of set 14 and understanding win condition. That's a win condition for any comp that you play, by the way. It doesn't matter what your comp is. If you're ever in a high roll spot, right? Here we couldn't see it, but I'm sure the Zac did almost as much damage as the Graves again. But you'll notice the fights aren't even close anymore, right? What's the difference between those first fights and these fights? Is it the extra whatever amount of damage amp I got? No. It's pretty much the fact that I just scaled up the Zac more so to a point where now my front line is absolutely untouchable. Because as you can see, the fight's over and the Zac is still alive. Right? The Zac cannot be killed. And it's only with 30 blobs or so. This is really important, right? And this is a part of, in the game, that I always say, identify the win condition for your comp. Right? This comp, obviously one of the win conditions is Zac. Zac's a win condition for any comp, right? But identify the other win conditions, right? Going for Jarvan 3, going for Senna 3. But a lot of the time, if you're in a really high roll spot, you have the option to pick your win condition. You have the option to say to yourself, which win condition can I play towards? Because I was in a really high roll spot, I said to myself, I'm not going to waste my time rolling for Jarvan. I'm not going to waste my time rolling for Senna. I can just go 9. I'll find a Zac eventually, and I'm going to get the gold from Golden Ox anyways. I'll have enough gold to roll for this Zac 3. My opponent had a Zac, had a Garen earlier. I think they could have won the game, right? That's the only reason I bringing it up. But I don't, like I said, no disrespect to the opponent, right? We're not being rude or anything like that, right? I'm not saying it in any way that I want anybody to take home, that I'm like insulting anybody in any way, shape, or form. What I'm trying to say is that something that's really important in TFT is always identifying your win condition the best way possible. And one of the best win conditions is if you hit Zac, to roll for the Zac. That's particular in this comp. You can apply it to many other comps. So whenever you're thinking about a comp in TFT, don't only think about how strong it is, don't only think about like the guide and your BIS items and your other stuff. Actually pay attention to your game, right? Pay attention to your game and think to yourself, am I strong enough to just push levels, find a Zac? If yes, then go for that. That's a win condition for every comp. If not, what are the win conditions specific for my comp? Can I hit them, right? I didn't think I can hit Jarvan 3. If I stayed on level 7 and I rolled for Jarvan 3 the whole game, I guarantee you I would not be able to, if my board was level 7, be able to beat that level 10 anima board that's just giga strong, right? There's no chance that I would have been able to beat them, right? Even with a Senna 3, right? The only way that would work is if I hit them early enough that I was still able to push levels. Now, would I have won if I played 6 Golden Ox? I think also no, right? 6 Golden Ox would just scale me with more items. If I put more items, if I had like items on Kayn, is that as important as having items on Zac? Because the damage amp isn't going to be much different, right? Maybe you can argue that if I had any items, you can do something like that. But the win conditions, especially for this comp, like I said, there's 3 of them, right? It's either 6 Golden Ox early, right? Because then you just stack up all your items and you can pivot off of 6 late game, right? You have the Jarv Senna 3 to become your new damage and new tank. And then you also have Zac. And Zac is something that applies to every single comp, right? So no matter what your comp is, if you're able to make it to a high level and you find an early Zac, just get those Zac bloblets, right? Don't go 10, don't do all these crazy things. Like you could in some cases, of course, like if you're really high roll, you can go 10 and then roll for blobs on 10 and do all this crazy shit, of course. But like, win conditions, right? Make sure you actually convert to a win, especially from a high roll spot. Don't throw your games for no reason, just to light up the side of your board or to have extra synergies. Anyways, that's it for today's video. It's a little bit of a VOD review, a little bit of talking about like, you know, the win conditions. It's also very similar to some of the other videos I put out already in the past a little bit. But, you know, I keep putting these out. Almost every time I do something like this, I have somebody saying like, you know, no, surely Zac isn't as strong as something else. So like, that's why I keep putting out these videos. This is probably the last one. I just want to make sure I had on my guide that I was going to do a win condition, identifying win condition video. I thought this was a good representation of that. We also talked about it in some of the other videos as well, right? If you're playing Strat Amp, for example, right? Strat Amp, a huge win condition for it is the Zac as well, right? When you're playing around your amp units. Oh my gosh, I can't type. Right? I did a video on this yesterday, a VOD review talking about how with this comp, a lot of times you're using it to tempo very aggressively and then hit the Zac and play around the Zac very effectively. There's also lots of comps that, you know, similarly work with Garen, right? Garen works really well with Exotech, right? Exotech is another thing you can do if you're really high roll and you have your full Exotech board. Getting Garen to spread Exotech mod onto other 5 costs is extremely powerful because of how much extra attack speed and HP it gives. It's particularly busted on pretty much everybody, so it can work out really effectively. Even Exotech on Garen and then putting some of the Exotech items on Garen is a really high cap for those type of boards. So always keep that in mind, right? When you're trying to cap out your board and push levels and you're not sure what to do, there's always those like special win conditions that apply to everything, and that's usually Zac Garen. But anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you had a great day. See ya. Bye-bye.